morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
It was a different era for sure. Only a few movie studios, about 3 television networks, and it seemed everyone in the world knew and admired those silver screen cowboy heroes. Even most city people could name them back then. There was, of course, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, John Wayne, Rocky Lane, and the last of the silver screen cowboys, Rex Allen. Now, the legacies of Roy and Rex are being faithfully carried on by Dusty, Roy Rogers Jr., and Rex Allen Jr. Now, Rex Jr. did a wonderful job at the 40th annual Ivan Daines Country Music Picnic last month, and today he'll share some memories of growing up as the son of a Western movie legend.
So, when my dad and I went to pick up my brother the next morning, Sunday morning, take him to church, Clark Gable was sitting by the pool, and there was a doctor next to him digging 2 pellets out of his left shoulder where he'd been shot.
And you'll hear some fond recollections of Rex Allen's famous horse Coco from Rex Jr. and his dad, and we'll wrap this up with a beautiful tribute written by one of our faithful listeners. And Baxter Black looks at some signs you might see around ranch country.
No hunting or no trespassing. Violators will be shot, ground into chorizo, and fed to the barn cats.
Another threat to the health of our cattle is one of the stories the Rangeland News is following.
The place to start is how this potentially fatal disease is transmitted.
On the Horse Training File, I'll look at how giving a horse a purpose, a job, can really help the horse and the rider become partners. Rex Allen Jr. has a pretty good story coming right up after we get things started with Tom Hyatt and Marvin Odell.
When I was a kid, my heroes were cowboys. I spent Saturday mornings with them all. Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and the 3 Musketeers spent the afternoon helping me catch outlaws. My partner was Tom from just up the street. I'd call him up and then he'd come down to play. We'd strap on our guns, put on our cowboy hats, and pretty soon you'd hear one of us say, I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane,
on Coco
and Blackjack
we'll ride. If you ever chased backyard outlaws, I don't need to explain when I say I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane.
One would be the sheriff, one would be the deputy. Both of us sure we had the fastest draw. Then we'd go chasing rustlers, putting them in jail in the back half of my daddy's old garage. Playing good guys and bad guys never got old. We never got bored like kids do today. When we wanted some excitement, we just turned on our pretend, and it wouldn't be long for someone would say, I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane,
on Coco
and Blackjack
we'll ride. If you ever chase backyard outlaws, I don't need to explain when I say I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane.
We were having a family picnic just the other day. We were all relaxed and spread out on the ground when I heard Tom say,
Hey, anybody know a game that we can play?
I smiled, stood up, and slowly looked around, and I said, yeah, I know a game we can play. I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane,
on Coco
and Blackjack
we ride. If you ever chase backyard outlaws, I don't need to explain when I say I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane,
I'll be Rex Allen,
I'll be Rocky Lane.
Those Hollywood superstars that we watched on the silver screen, what were they really like in person? Well, back in my generation, everybody knew Clark Gable, and Rex Allen Jr. and his family were actually close neighbors back in the 50s.
Kay Gable, Kay was married Clark, and they had another child, John Clark, but Bunker was from her first marriage. Well, Clark Gable was a wonderful man, and he took the kids in and all that other stuff, and he had a beautiful little ranch out in the San Fernando Valley in California, and my brother Kurt and Bunker were best friends. And he had this little place in the San Fernando Valley. It had about 10 or 12 acres on it, and it had a hillside on it. And the boys, Kurt and Bunker, decided one night they'd go out and camp. So Clark got the camp gear out and helped them set it all up. And the boys were out there, and he got them a little fire going and that sort of thing. And Clark thought it'd be a fun thing if he went out about midnight and tried to scare the kids and act like a bear or something like that. Well, he did do that, but what he didn't know is my brother Kurt had taken a pellet gun along with him for, like kids will do for protection. And he heard something rustling in the bushes and shot it. So when my dad and I went to pick up my brother the next morning, Sunday morning, take him to church, Clark Gable was sitting by the pool, and there was a doctor next to him digging 2 pellets out of his left shoulder where he'd been shot, and told the story. But the end of the story is really cool. So Clark was there and Kay was there, and they were sitting by the pool and laughing about what happened and so on and so forth. Dad was laughing, and I turned and looked, and a lady walked out of the house, a blonde woman, and waved and said, "I'll see you on the set on Monday, Clark. Thanks for the help on the scene," and walked out, and it was Marilyn Monroe. So, yeah, kind of an interesting childhood.
And next, it's a fascinating story about Rex Allen's famous horse Coco, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. In the days of the silver screen cowboy heroes, their horses got as much billing as their riders, Roy Rogers and Trigger. And Roy actually had 3 similar-looking Palominos, the original Trigger, Trigger Jr., and Little Trigger. And there were about 7 different champions ridden by Gene Autry, but for Rex Allen, there was only one Coco. Gorgeous dark liver chestnut with a platinum mane and tail, a beautiful free-flowing way of moving, and Rex and Coco did almost all their own stunts in the movies, and when they crossed the continent with live appearances at rodeos and fairs, the horse Rex rode in the spotlight is the same one we saw on the screen. And Rex Allen Jr. has fond memories of that great horse.
Coco would have still been very much in the picture when you were still there, I guess.
The old man, we called him. He was called the old man. We called him Coco, but he was the old man. Go get the old man, and yeah, Coco was very much in the picture. As a matter of fact, when I was 15 and a half, Dad fired the Wrangler and got me a special driver's license, and I took off in the truck, pulling the horse, and drove. We went to the rodeo, did the rodeo in Eureka, California, and drove from there to Moses Lake, Washington, did the rodeo, and drove from there to Calgary. And so I wrangled the horse all that time period. I used to have to take care of the old man all the time. The interesting thing about Coco was he had a wonderful disposition. He was just a wonderful animal. But he was the only horse that I ever was around that he was a real road dog. I mean, he was a real road horse. I mean, he knew when we were going on the road, because we'd get about 30 or 40 miles out of Los Angeles, headed towards Salt Lake or something like that. And once he felt that you were on flat highway and pretty much on a straight line shot, you'd feel the trailer go boom, just bam, and I learned, I said to my dad when it first happened, I said, "What the heck was that, Dad?" And he says, "Coco just laid down." And he would lay down like that. He's the only horse I've ever seen that would lay down in a trailer. He would lay down and sleep.
So then when you and your dad and Coco would get to the rodeo or the show location, I guess that's where the real work started, right, Rex?
In those days, I would, it was my job to wrangle Coco. I'd bathe him and get him ready for shows and comb out the mane and tail, which was a mess.
Oh, man.
It's like dealing with Crystal Gale on a factor of 50, trying to get the tangles out of the mane and tail.
I can just imagine, boy, how
But
he would
then I'd do that. I'd give Dad the horse, run around, and then I'd take Coco out of the arena, and then tie Coco to the stalls, and then run back out and play guitar and sing in Dad's shows, then run back and get the horse, give the horse to Dad, and then wrangle Coco. Everybody says, "Boy, that must have been great. You were on the road having a great time and all this other stuff." And yeah, I had a wonderful time, but I was working pretty darn hard too while I was doing it.
Now, right after a song from Rex Jr., you'll hear the words of his dad and more fond memories of Coco.
I'm dressing up in style, for in a little while I'm gonna ride into town. And every cowboy pal will lift his heel and toe whenever payday rolls around. And so I'm feeling fine because there's lots of time until we're all homeward bound. To work and slave with cattle, sweat and swear and battle until payday rolls around. What does a cowboy do when all of his work is through? Just what I'm gonna do now. With money to spend and jingle off into town to mingle with all my friends I allow. And maybe a blue-eyed gal will wait for a bronco pal to ride o'er hot desert ground. True heart and golden hair, know that I'll soon be there when payday rolls around. I'm dressing up in style, for in a little while I'm gonna ride. I'm dressing up in style, for in a little while I'm gonna ride into town. And every cowboy pal will lift his heel and toe whenever payday rolls around. And so I'm feeling fine because there's lots of time until we're all homeward bound. To work and slave with cattle, sweat and swear and battle until payday rolls around. Payday rolls around.
I guess I was about 12 years old when I first saw Rex Allen Sr. and Coco live at the old Edmonton Gardens, and a little later today you'll hear a beautiful story one of our listeners wrote about one of those appearances. And so many years later, I had the privilege of kind of getting to know and visit with my hero several times, and about a year before we lost him, Rex Sr. shared these memories. I have always wanted to ask you this. Now, old Coco looked magnificent up there on the silver screen and in your movie posters, but was he more than just a movie horse? Did you ever get to ride him out in the hills or anywhere besides on the movie set or in front of a live audience?
Oh, yeah. I had a ranch in Malibu Canyon, and that's where I had Coco all the time. And I had a few head of cattle and 7 other horses that my kids rode. So yeah, I used to ride him over at the beach. I could ride through the hills down into the ocean. And he's one of the few horses I ever rode that wasn't afraid of the water. He'd get out knee deep in those waves and just loved it. And he was quite a horse. He never refused me on anything.
As I know, some of the cowboy stars we've watched, the only time they're ever on the movie star horse is when they're on camera or on the set.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to hear that you and him got to be together.
I never did find a double. Never did find a double for him. We used to take a white horse and block off his mane and tail and the stockings and dye him with vegetable dye him chocolate colored. And that's the only way we could get a double, was to create one ourselves. And I looked all over Canada and the United States, and I wish I'd started with a sorrel or something, or a white horse that you could double. But he made it.
Rex, the Arizona Cowboy, was the only movie you made without Coco. Now, just how did you and this magnificent horse get together?
He was 10 years old when I bought him, and a girl who was trick riding owned him out of St. Louis. And she was in love with him, wanted to keep him forever. And she finally let me have him if I dug a little deeper in my pocket. I don't know whether it was right or wrong, because I couldn't double him. So the horse I used in the picture business, the one I showed up at rodeos with, I always used the same one.
Being that he was a stud, did that create any special situations hauling him all around and places you had to?
Any problem with him. I didn't stand him much to any mares. The only reason I ever did is trying to get a colt like him. I finally got one out of a mare I had that had his coloring and the white mane and tail, but he was kind of a lanky colt, and he didn't have the quarter horse block look to him. And I used him a few years after Coco died. Called him Junior. And he was a good little colt, but not near as good as his dad.
And still to come, more of Rex Allen's special memories, and Baxter Black is next with a look at some of the signs you'll see around ranch country when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at public signs. When you go to B&W Hitch Factory for a visit, you won't need a passport or a Chinese translator. Why? Because their hitches are made right here in the heart of America. Sometimes that gets lost in the whir of our global economy, but lots of American businesses have survived the recession without cheapening their products or outsourcing jobs. Instead, they chose to stay at home, share the work, and spread the benefits. Learn more about what B&W stands for by going to AmericanMadeHitch.com. Public signs and announcements are often unclear. Hidden meanings lurk beneath even the simplest directive. Well, I'd like to propose that some government agency be assigned the task of rewriting them to say what they mean. For instance, the announcements you hear frequently in major airports should say, "Your attention, please. The solicitation of funds by religious groups, Moonies, animal rights fanatics, perverts, sickies, and other weirdos is not sponsored by the management of this airport or the airlines." See? Say what you mean. This parking space is reserved for handicapped persons only. If you are parked here and can walk away from your car without the aid of a cane, it may be the last time. Caution. The Surgeon General has determined that smoking will cause your lungs to look like Alpo, make your clothes and hair smell bad, take 10 years off your life, and make kissing you as pleasant as licking an ashtray. Beware of dog. We are sick and tired of uninvited guests and couldn't find a sign that said, "Beware of armed sniper" in the lilac bush. Parking for customers only. Violators will be crushed and melted. EP estimates, 25 miles per gallon city, 30 miles per gallon country. These estimates and your mileages may vary because the EPA, like most government agencies, is incapable of making a decision, and since they ran the test, they're probably not reliable anyway. Not responsible for hats and coats. There's no accounting for the bad taste some of our customers have in clothing. No shirt, no shoes, no money, no service. For sale, good cow dog, $1,000. We'll consider trade for two $500 cats or a high school graduate with no intention of going to veterinary school. Home cooking. Today's special, leftovers, microwaved to perfection, just like you get at home. No hunting or no trespassing. Violators will be shot, ground into chorizo, and fed to the barn cats. Easy money pawn shop. We lend cash on anything of value. All we require is proper identification and a member of your family as collateral. And finally, I've eaten at some restaurants where the sign on the door should have said, "Sorry, we're open." This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
The Alberta Cowboy Poetry Association presents the 12th Annual Trails End Gathering, September 30th to October 1st and 2nd at the High River Full Gospel Church, honoring the history and traditions of the West with over 30 performers. Friday and Saturday daytime events are free to seniors. There's a cowboy church on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and an open mic in the park at 2:30. Beef stew supper and pie and great Western entertainment and so much more. Get more information at albertacowboypoetry.com. For tickets, call 403-946-5482 or 403-649-2701. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland News, here's Gary Felgard and kind of a signature song of his that really fits with the cowboy heroes we're talking about today. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland News, here's Gary Felgard and kind of a signature song that really fits with the cowboy heroes we're talking about today.
When I was young, I used to trade my comic books and homemade guns, and little cowboys on the run were killers just like me. We'd hang those dirty outlaws high with rawhide or ropes of binder twine. Red Rider was a friend of mine, a hero just for me. I remember when we stole a can of tobacco from the hired hand, and seeing as how we were working men, we'd smoke till we were green. And we could spit and we could fight, and we'd believe each other's lies, riding fast and riding high for all the world to see. Whatever happened to my heroes? They don't make them like they did in 44. But they were there when I needed them. I wish they'd all come back again, 'cause I don't have no heroes anymore. They travel through my memory, those riders in their legacy. I know they all remembered me. They called me by my name. And like a ghost from yesterday, my heroes thunder on their way back into a lonely grave for all eternity. Whatever happened to my heroes? They don't make them like they did in 44. But they were there when I needed them. I wish they'd all come back again, 'cause I don't have no heroes anymore. Whatever happened to my heroes? They don't make them like they did in 44. But they were there when I needed them. I wish they'd all come back again, 'cause I don't have no heroes anymore. They were there when I needed them. I wish they'd all come back again, 'cause I don't have no heroes anymore. No, I don't have no heroes anymore.
news of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
On the top of page 1, it says here, it's a disease that has resulted in the deaths of a lot of cattle over the years, and controlling it can still be a challenge. Here's more from Rod Bain.
How can anaplasmosis be prevented in cattle herds? The place to start is how this potentially fatal disease is transmitted. Primary vectors of anaplasmosis bacteria are horseflies and specific types of ticks.
If producers have a good insecticide control program controlling external parasites, they can control this in a certain way.
As Dana Zook of Oklahoma State University Extension explains, commonly used insecticide ear tags are not very effective against those pests carrying anaplasmosis.
Sprays and pour-on insecticides work far better for ticks, but all insecticides only provide a brief control of horseflies.
Anaplasmosis can also be transmitted through instruments carrying antiplasma-infected blood, such as unclean needles used in vaccinations. Zook adds tetracycline antibiotic placed in animal feed to combat anaplasmosis now requires a veterinary feed directive to use in this fashion. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Since the beginning of summer, 9 new cases of rabies have been reported in Western Canada by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and 28 of those were Ontario. Of those, 16 were traced to raccoons and 6 each confirmed in bats and skunks. Saskatchewan confirmed 7 cases in July, 4 in bats, 2 in skunks, and 1 in a goat. Alberta and BC each confirmed 1 case of rabies in July, both in bats. And this viral disease can affect mammals, including humans, and it's almost always fatal once it's contracted. And so far in British Columbia, there's been 5 confirmed cases of rabies in animals this year. Alberta 2, Saskatchewan 18, Manitoba 10, and Ontario 162. A $1 million grant program was announced by the Alberta and federal governments for use on irrigation projects. Irrigation districts and irrigators plan and develop tools that will enhance innovation and improve efficiency of Alberta's irrigation systems, and the money will be channeled through the program Growing Forward 2. Alberta's irrigation system has about 8,000 kilometers of canals and pipelines and provides water to about 1.4 million acres, and it supplies towns, villages, industries, and processors. And if $1 million for that sounds like a lot, how about this? Some of Alberta's provincial parks will get upgrades over the next 5 years using $239 million in funding. Funds will be used to improve campsites, hiking trails, showers, playgrounds, parking lots, and day-use areas, among other projects. If you're looking for a place to market your calves, the special calf and yearling sale, the first one, happens September 27th at the BC Livestock Co-op, starts at 10:30. Good idea to call the co-op now to have your cattle consigned. The number, of course, 250-573-3939. And this one comes under the heading of Veterinarians Wanted. Alberta Agriculture and Forestry is offering the Appointed Inspector Program, where veterinarians can act as inspectors under the Meat Inspection Act if they are registered under the Veterinary Profession Act and licensed by the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association. Under the program, vets are appointed as inspectors for a 3-year term to help livestock producers with emergency situations so that an animal unfit for transportation can be inspected and slaughtered right on the premises, allowing the meat to be sold within Alberta. And in some parts of the province, there are currently no appointed inspectors available in the area. Vets are compensated by the producer or abattoir requesting the service as per their agreement with them. Now, if you're a vet and you'd like to apply, you can call the program administrator at 780-422-2104. September 23rd at the Innisfail Auction Market, it's Dwight Ungstad's annual quarter horse production sale. And then on September 24th, of course, the regular horse sale, and they do have regular cattle sales every Wednesday. Good idea, again, to call them and get your cattle listed early. You can get all the information at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And that takes us down to the final item. And you know, I do enjoy shopping at the horse barn in our town. That's where I pick up our Hoffman's horse ration each couple of weeks or so. And they got a good selection of Western wear. And I even get fashion advice from Tom. The other day I stepped out of the change room and he took a look at me and he said, "Hugh, I'd say no. wrong style, wrong size, baggy in the seat. Those jeans look terrible on you. I said, Tom, I'm trying on a shirt. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Horse Training File, how giving your horse a purpose can make him more of a partner, and more memories of Rex Allen Sr. and more great music when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. More memories of the late and great Rex Allen Sr. coming up, including a couple of stories about his famous sidekick Slim Pickens. And this week's Horse Training File, right after a song Rex wrote, sung here by Shirley Field.
Sing me a song of the saddle and the clear blue sky above. It's there I long to be, 'cause it's where my soul is free. Sing me a song of my love. Sing me a song of the cowboy as he rides o'er hill and dale. He don't know much of art, but his song is from the heart. Sing me a song of the trail. When shadows creep and day is getting long, he sings a tender lullaby. His herd will sleep because they fear no wrong, as long as he's riding nigh. Sing me a song of the saddle and the plain I love to roam, where God and man are one and the work is being done. Sing me a song of my home. When shadows creep and day is getting long, he sings a tender lullaby. His herd will sleep because they fear no wrong, as long as he's riding nigh. Sing me a song of the saddle and the plain I love to roam, where God and man are one and the work is being done. Sing me a song of my home.
Now, this week's Horse Training File, and I just got back from a thoroughly enjoyable week at Jonathan Field's Purpose Camp at his beautiful James Creek Ranch. And this was for a high level of riders, but many of them don't have a chance to work their horses on live cattle or work on things like roping. Well, we worked with a mechanical cow for the basics of cutting, a great mobile roping dummy for heading and heeling, and we had a nice bunch of quiet cows and calves to work with too. Now, the principle was to take the focus from the rider through the horse to the job. And as Jonathan explained it, a well-tuned arena performance horse, such as a reiner, is drilled on responding to every cue from the rider and not taking any initiative to work on his own. So what we worked the riders on was being not a slave, but a full partner, the horse that is. And there was nothing better than having live cattle in a controlled environment. Now, the horses all made tremendous improvements during the week, and as Jonathan pointed out repeatedly, they were learning all the good things without even knowing they were learning, and they didn't know how good they were getting. It was really fun watching the response to the mechanical cow for the first time. A lot of them were afraid, Then fear turned to curiosity and then to real interest and focusing on that little black and white critter. And with a job in front of them, we watched the whole relationship between horse and rider change from slave and master to a full partnership, and it was so good to see. And by the time you hear this, I think we have some great pictures that Billy took up on our Facebook page at hugh-mclennan.com. Oh, something else our horses really do well on is that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration, and they have a bunch of customized mixes now for every type of horse. You can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. One of the finest equine establishments in Western Canada is now for sale. Horse in Hand Ranch has hosted world-class events and world-class clinicians like George Morris, Jonathan Field, and many more. The main barn has a state-of-the-art 230 by 90-foot indoor arena, attached 60-foot indoor round pen, 21 custom stalls with feed bins, rubber mats, and automatic waterers, 2 beautifully groomed outdoor arenas, and over 100 acres of country riding trails. Beautiful 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom home with 5,000 square feet of living space. A shop any horseman would love to have. Many quality outbuildings, turnout pens, and pasture. This facility has more wonderful features than we have time to mention, but you can find out more at klrtcommercial.com/horse-in-hand or call 403-887-1237. Would you like to visit one of the most spectacular continents in the world with elegant accommodations, exotic destinations, amazing shore excursions, and a wonderful group of folks and the best guides you can find?
Where the deep blue pearly waters wash upon white silver sand.
Here's how you can do it. January 14th to February 4th, 2017, our cruise directors Jim and Karen Bell are hosting a 22-day cruise and tour of South America. This journey of a lifetime includes stops in Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and the Falkland Islands. A private tour of famous wineries in Chile. A private tour to the Estancia Santa Susana with 1,200 acres devoted to agriculture, cattle, and horse breeding. Spend 14 days aboard the beautiful Crown Princess and 5 nights in Argentina, 2 nights in Chile in 5-star hotels. Now, this all-inclusive tour includes all shore excursions at all ports. A cruise escorted by Jim and Karen is the best way to create memories that'll last a lifetime. If you've always wanted to see South America, give them a call at 1-800-530-0131 and see cruise-vacations.ca.
I had my own special heroes way back when I was just a boy. My heroes made the scene on that big silver screen. They were cowboys like Hoppy, Gene, and Roy. I saw John Wayne and Gary Cooper. When they made their stand, they weren't afraid to fail. And if Zorro or Durango Kid were on the bandit's trail, I knew that justice would prevail. I saved my pennies for the movies, and on Saturday I lived in make-believe. I rode that 10-cent horse down at the drugstore, and I wished for boots on Christmas Eve. I'd play Red Rider or Lone Ranger, sometimes Cisco Kid or Lash LaRue. I learned it didn't pay to be the bad guy. Rewards were for the faithful, kind, and true. Now those backyard trail drives are over, and my badge and guns and spurs are rusted through. But I'll have those memories for the rest of my life, and I'm glad I was a little buckaroo. I'd play Red Rider or Lone Ranger, sometimes Cisco Kid or Lash LaRue. I learned it didn't pay to be the bad guy. Rewards were for the faithful, kind, and true. Those backyard trail drives are over, and my badge and guns and spurs are rusted through. But I'll have those memories for the rest of my life, and I'm glad I was a little buckaroo.
That's Cecil B. Cravens and his special heroes. And back in about 1954, or maybe 55, I was a kid in the front row at the Edmonton Rodeo of Champions at the old Edmonton Gardens. The bull riding was about to start. The clowns and bullfighters were Buddy Heaton and the great Slim Pickens. Slim was right next to me and waiting for Jim Shoulders to nod for the gate. I leaned over and said, "Mr. Pickens, can I have your autograph?" He turned around and said, "Okay, kid, but make it quick." I handed him my program. He signed it, and as he handed it back, the gate opened and Jim Shoulders made a great ride. Boy, I wish I still had that program. That was the same rodeo that Rex Allen and Coco were making an appearance, and so many years later I talked with Rex about Slim.
Rex Slim Pickens was your sidekick in a lot of movies, and you and Slim traveled to a lot of rodeos together where you were the contract act, you and Coco, and Slim was still doing rodeo clown work and bullfighting, but I have heard about a rodeo somewhere where I think you sang a song called This Little Boy of Mine or something, and Slim got involved.
Yeah.
Is there a story here?
Well, yeah, I had a thing where I would get one of the cowboys' kids, a little boy, and I sang a song, "Tiny turned up nose, two cheeks just like a rose," and we'd black out the arena and a little boy, pick him up with a spotlight down at one end, and he'd walk in while I was singing that song, and I'd pick him up and talk to him. And one night, I don't know whether it was San Antonio or somewhere, I looked down there, and here comes Slim Pickens with nothing on but a hat and a diaper. Or wasn't too sentimental, we'll say, with no tears. I told him if he ever did it again, I'd kill him. He had some great stories. He told me one time about, I'll have to think a minute to see where he was. I think he was up around Great Falls, Montana, and he somehow or other staked old John. That's what he called his horse, old Dear John.
Was he that happy kind of?
Yeah, he was happy. And he lost him. Just couldn't find him for a day and a half, 2 days. And I was on the phone with him, and I said, "Slim, where'd you finally figure out where he was?" He said he was down at City Hall trying to get my driver's license took away from me.
Well, coming up is something very special. I hope you'll enjoy it when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Here's a note from Noreen Olson, one of our faithful longtime listeners. In part, she said, "In 1997, I won the grand prize at Canada's Cowboy Festival Poetry Contest with the theme as Heroes of the Golden West. It was about a touching moment I witnessed in Rex Allen's career. And with Noreen's permission, I'd like to read it for you now. I wasn't much of a rodeo fan. At 17, rodeo wasn't that cool, but a friend asked me to go along, and I broke my rodeo rule. We drove to the city with her mom and dad. It was fall, and the show was inside, so we parked and walked to the arena that squatted there large and long and wide. Our tickets were good, second row up, so we had a wonderful view. And except for a space right behind us of spare seats, there were pretty darn few. The Brahma bulls bellowed and the cowhands got thrown, dogies got roped from a strawberry roan. Wild cows were milked, broncs burst from the chutes, cowboys wrestled down steers and then limped back in heeled boots. I was enjoying the show, I was forced to admit, and the guest star still to come I admired a fair bit. He was handsome and blond and he sang pretty well. I'd heard he loved children, big-hearted as hell. If he sang Streets of Laredo, I knew I'd probably weep, especially the part where his voice goes so deep. As the next to last cowboy earned his honorable mention, a disturbance behind us caught our attention. Two women placed a small mattress in what had been an empty space and then carefully helped a small boy into place. When they had him laid down, they put a mask on his nose, pumped him some air, and straightened his clothes. The little guy's eyes were shining. His grin covered most of his face. He had come to see Rex Allen, and the world was a beautiful place. Rex Allen rode into the spotlight, and he sang and he played and he roped. He was gentle and warm and handsome, and everything we had hoped. He was dressed all in white and silver, and Coco, his horse, reared and danced. The little guy on the mattress was absolutely entranced. Rex was coming to the end of his program, and I admit to a feeling of pique. He hadn't done Streets of Laredo. But wait now, he's going to speak. I'm gonna sing a song, he said, for a brave little buckaroo. I'm not gonna spell his name out, but I reckon he knows who. And then he sang Laredo, and all the lights dimmed down. And as the closing notes faded, he started his ride around. Well, every kid in the arena pressed forward to the wire, and the thin little kid strained frantically to be lifted higher and higher. Strangers reached out to help him, hands raised like silent prayers, and an opening sort of materialized while they carried him down the stairs. The star was getting closer now, shaking hands, tussling hair. Our little boy was fighting for breath, but that great big grin was still there. It would have been so easy for the singer just to wave and pass by, but he urged Coco right up to the fence, and he reached out to that little guy. From his golden hair, he took his big white hat and set it on the little boy's head. The kid's thin hands grabbed both sides of the brim, and they carried him back to his bed. Half the people in the arena were sobbing, the other half wiping their eyes. The kid had such a grip on that hat and a face full of joy and surprise. So it wasn't cool to like rodeo or to be a cowboy fan. I love that damned old rodeo, and Rex Allen is still my man. Based on a real experience, the Edmonton Indoor Fall Rodeo in about 1956.
As I walked down in the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy all dressed in white linen, all dressed in white linen, as cold as the clay. Beat the drum slowly, play the fife lowly, play the dead march as you carry me along. Take me to the green valley, there lay the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy, and know I've done wrong. Let 16 cowboys come carry my coffin. Let 16 gamblers come sing me a song. Take me to the green valley, there lay the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy. I know I've done wrong. Beat the drum slowly, play the fife lowly, play the dead march as you carry me along. Take me to the green valley, there lay the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy. I know I've done
Well, thank you so much for riding along this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to the Spirit of the West support crew. That would be Mark and Kathy McMillan. See them at meadowsprings.com. And for all the information on our next Spirit of the West cruise, that's our Odyssey to Alaska, see our page at hugh-mclennan.com. And you can give Jim and Karen a call for all the details at 1-800-530-0131. Oh yes, be sure to read through the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. I've got a story in there called Chasing Cattle on a Show Jumper, with a pretty nice picture of Jonathan Field on a magnificent horse along with this old cowboy on my faithful pony Stanley. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.